Well, the farm was purchased in 1741, 43 acres, by a John Lyman, whose family had settled in Durham. They had come down from Northampton and Springfield and Hartford, and they settled in Durham. And one of the sons, John, bought this 43 acres on the Middlefield-Durham line. Middlefield at that time was a part of Middletown and was not settled apart from Middletown until 1866. But the farm, of course, was pretty much a subsistence farm, where about all they did was to keep themselves alive, and it went on for several generations that way. And my grandfather, David Lyman, who was the fifth generation on the farm, was the one that branched out a great deal. He was connected with the Metropolitan Wringer Company. The wringers that used to be attached to the side of a wash tub when they did the washing by hand, turned the old wringer by hand, and then he got into railroading. He wasn't so much a farmer as he was a railroad man, and he wanted to find the shortest, or develop the shortest route between New York and Boston. At that time there were routes going up through Springfield, as there are today, and also along the shore. But he wanted to cut that across lots. So he tried to develop the air line, he called it, starting off from New Haven, going through Middletown and Willimantic and Worcester to Boston, cutting out the swing down to Providence and cutting out the swing up to Springfield. And he developed that line and had it almost complete when he died as a man of only 50 years. After his death, the New Haven Railroad bought it, and at one time contemplated making it a double-track road from New Haven to Boston. But the grades were so steep, and it was so costly to eliminate some of those grades that it was never accomplished. They still maintained the route up the river to Springfield and across to Boston, and along the shore line, which was a pretty level route. So the airline never got to be an important line for transportation between New York and Boston. It still operates from New Haven to Middletown with a freight a day, but otherwise the line has been abandoned from Middletown to Worcester. The 1938 hurricane flood took out a good portion of it up in Putnam direction, so that they never rebuilt the line after that. Well, grandfather, as I say, died, and he left 9 children here on the farm. He had lived in the original farmhouse on the farm here until his family began to grow so large that he had to have more room, and he added to the old the old house that was built in 1785. This portion where we are at the present time, he added that to the old house, which took in the dining room and the kitchen and the 3 upstairs bedrooms. Well, they persuaded friends or relatives or what have you, persuaded grandfather that the L that he had built onto the original house really was so large that it made the old house look quite small and inferior. So they persuaded him to move the old house from its present foundation here across the meadow and set it up on a new site where it stands today. And my brother Henry owns it. and build a new central part to the house, which he did, and built it about 3 feet higher than this L part to make it stand out as the central part of the house. And he put a cupola on it so it would pronounce it a little bit more. Then he had several cousins that he had to take care of, so he built another L, which we call the annex at the present time, and he built that on. So this present house was built in 3 stages, and we don't know the exact dates of all those expansions, but it was between 125 and 150 years ago. That's the nearest we can come to the date of the present house. And then my father, well, first off, grandfather died in 1871 at the age of 50, leaving a family of 9 children, and they were all between the ages of 16 and 25 or 6, and 4 of them died within 2 years of pneumonia, which happened to be the scourge of the Lyman family. Two of them while they were at Yale, 2 sons. A daughter died within a week of one of the sons. But as I say, 3 sons and a daughter died within 2 years in their early 20s. Father carried on the farm, and at first he was making some of his money from the fattening of sheep or lambs. He'd bring them in from the ranges out west, Montana and so on, about Thanksgiving time. Put them in the barns and intensely feed them so that they would fatten and be what we call spring lambs about Easter time. And they were sold in the New Haven market. And they they always commanded quite a premium for spring lambs, and were very well known as Lyman spring lambs in the New Haven market. Well, after he discontinued that in 1916, there were Lyman lambs sold in the New Haven market for 5 or 6 years after that, because it had such a good reputation down there that Strong Barnes Hart and Company, the company that handled the lambs, were still selling to the trade Lyman spring lambs when Lyman had discontinued for 6 or 7 years the fattening of those lambs.
Did they pay you for your name?
Yes. Well, in about 1895, my father became interested with many other fruit growers in the state in peaches. It seemed to be a coming fruit for Connecticut. Previously, most of the peaches had been raised south, and they didn't think that they would be hardy enough to stand the rigors and winter temperatures. But they did develop varieties that were hardy. And my father was J.H. Hale, who was a well-known figure in the peach industry in Glastonbury, and a number of other growers branched out in the raising of peaches. And it was...
Just a minute, John. Let's get...
Well, the peach industry became a very important industry in the state between 1895 and 1916. There was a great deal of home canning all during that period, and peaches were much in demand all through New England. Peaches had come in from the south earlier in the season, but the Connecticut peaches finished off the season, and so were generally very popular north of Connecticut in New England.